All right, I thought this could be a fun idea for a video. There's a lot of talk about like who should win Super Bowl MVP or just after the Super Bowl in general, who were the key players. I figured, well, let's just make a list, top 10 players who helped the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. I'm just talking during the Super Bowl. If you had a great regular season and then sucked in the Super Bowl, you do not make this list. So these are my picks for the top 10 key players that helped the Chiefs win the Super Bowl on the Chiefs. Obviously, if you had a bad day for San Francisco, not getting included on the list. Let's just get into it. Number 10, Tommy Townsend definitely has to get not just an honorable mention, a mention here. He did really good on these. He had 5 punts in the game and averaged 50 yards per punt. And I made a whole video on this. I'm not sure which one's coming out first, but essentially what happened was the first 4 punts were so far down the field and the Gunners were still winning, so McLeod couldn't get a return, that on the 5th punt, which was a little shorter due to pressure, return men for San Francisco just weren't kind of expecting that, and that's in large part what it caused that fumble to happen. So yeah, definitely a huge impact player. So even though he's a punter, hey, punters are people too, and they make the list, but still just at number 10. Number 9, I'm going Leo Chenal, who would be higher on this list probably if he played more. He only had like 25 snaps in this game, but he was great in those snaps. He was actually PFF's highest graded player for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and he was also, he forced a fumble on McCaffrey. He was the guy who was credited for the blocked extra point. At first, I thought it was Mike Dana, but if you look at the replay, his hand actually touched it first, and then Dana's it would hit his forearm, and that's what completely knocked it away. But Chenal was the guy who did that, and he had some other key plays. A key blitz right after Mahomes threw an interception to kind of disrupt a play for Purdy, which helped the 49ers not scoring there. So yeah, a lot of impact plays for a guy who didn't play a lot. He's on the list. Number 8, McCole Hardman, which it's hard to figure out exactly where he should go on the list because he also didn't play a ton. I mean, the guy had 3 catches. One was for like 2 yards on a 3rd and 8, and then the other was a 50-yard bomb, but then they fumbled right after. And then he had to, the game-winning touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. Listen, there's one player in NFL history who can say they caught a game-winning touchdown pass in overtime in a Super Bowl, and it's McCole Hardman. Like, that alone, all right, you're getting on the list, sure. And I thought he did some nice stuff, too, helping set up other guys get open on other routes. That's kind of his role, was sort of a setup guy here. But when he was called on, he was able to do his thing. So, yeah, he belongs on the list at number 8. Number 7 is George Karlaftis. I made a video about him. I made a video about everyone on this list because, of course, I did. It's the Super Bowl. Gotta, make videos on everything you can about that because it's just fun. It's a big game. But, yeah, Karlaftis was great. We knew he was going to have some favorable matchups going into this game, and he took advantage. Like, that's what he had to do. He had to come through and have a big game. And while he might not have had the splash plays that a couple other guys did, although he did still recover a fumble, so he had some splash plays, but it was more about the just consistent pressure and consistently winning that I think really helped out the Chiefs. So, yeah, he's at number 7. Number 6, Travis Kelce, who at a point was not looking like he was going to have a great game. He was, only had 1 catch in the first half. He's getting into fights with his head coach, right? All that stuff. But then I think really what turned it around in the second half was getting Kelce going. Andy Reid ran some kind of nice concepts to get the ball in Kelce's hands. Kelce had nearly 100 yards in this game, despite the fact that he only had like 2 in the first half. So definitely was a key impact player throughout, and I think not throughout, but throughout the second half, I should say, and was a huge reason that they turned it around. So yeah, he's at number 6. Number 5 is L'Jarius Sneed, the corner L'Jarius Sneed, and you might be sitting here and wondering, well, wait a second, Jackson. I don't really remember hearing L'Jarius Sneed's name that much. I don't remember what he did. Exactly. If you're an outside corner and no one's remembering you and no one's paying attention to you, especially against San Francisco, it's because you're playing really good. And we were wondering going in, is Brandon Ayuk going to get a deep shot against Sneed? The fact that it never happened and never even looked, they never really considered it, was in large part because of what Sneed was able to do and what he's able to do all year. He's a great outside corner, and it's unfortunate for the Kansas City Chiefs that corners don't get the credit that receivers do because their cornerback room is fantastic. He's their best corner, and he was a top 5 player in the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. Number 4, how about Harrison Butker? He definitely deserves to be on this list, and I think some people might have had him lower on the list than I'm going to have him. making the kicks that he made is huge. Obviously, the game tire, but that was an easy kick. That was 29 yards. Listen, I wouldn't have been able to make it, but for an NFL kicker who is as good as Harrison Butker, that was an easy kick for him. It was the 57-yarder that was such an impressive kick. I mean, a 57-yarder in itself is that probably would have put him on, just what he did alone, going 4 for 4 with a 57-yarder and some other long ones, that's going to get you on the list. But a 57-yarder with a bad snap, so he couldn't fully get the arch he wanted to, had to completely long line drive it, and still was able to get it through. One of the more impressive kicks you'll see of all time. And what wouldn't have just been 3 points off the board had he missed it. It also would have given the 49ers great field position to potentially go down and score points of their own. So that was a huge play in the game. And yeah, I think 4 feels fair. With how important that kick was, that's where I'm going to have him. Number 3, I'm going Chris Jones, who was borderline unblockable in this game. You saw so much extra attention was getting put on Chris Jones when he would line up as an edge. On Trent Williams, they would have another guy come over and help, how about Trent Williams? That's how much respect Jones got, and then he had some of those plays where, listen, the overtime play, they just didn't block him. That was bad by San Francisco, but at the same time, he still did a nice job at, doing what he could after that point, so you got to give him credit there. But just in general, he was winning a lot, winning consistently, and was able to, again, have a key impact in this game. So for Jones, as it is with all pass rushers, it's not always about the stats. It's about, how consistently are you creating pressure, and he was consistently creating pressure, had a huge impact. He's number 3. Many people thought maybe he should be, the MVP of the Super Bowl. You could have made an argument, but I actually think that if you were to go with a defensive player to an MVP, Jones wouldn't have been my pick. Because my number 2 on this list, Trent McDuffie, would have been my selection if I were to go with someone who, again, McDuffie did have a bad holding penalty in overtime, so that wasn't great. But other than that, the guy was making plays left and right. He made the play that basically saved the game. On that 3rd down and 4, when pass to Juwan Jennings gets tipped at the line by McDuffie, who was blitzing, if he doesn't make that play, the game's basically over. The 49ers would have ran out the clock, kicked the field goal with close to time expiring, and probably won the game. You can never say never with Mahomes on the other side, but definitely would have had a great chance. And it wasn't just that play that McDuffie was making. He was making plays consistently throughout the course of the game to cover guys up and to, he basically shut out Deebo Samuel when Samuel was on McDuffie. And McDuffie also had a big play to stop Kittle from being able to gain any more yards, which set up that 3rd and 4 that I mentioned earlier. So McDuffie had a ton of key 3rd down stops and just plays in general. So yeah, number 2 on this list, but who's number 1. Patrick Mahomes, of course, is Patrick Mahomes. I think you could argue some other guys, because Mahomes didn't have his best start to the game, only 3 points in the first half, threw an interception starting the second half. It certainly wasn't all on Mahomes at all. Definitely, he made some mistakes there as well. He did miss a couple throws in there as well, but what he was able to do in the second half was just, and especially, in overtime, was just perfect. It's hard to really look at it and say that he wasn't the most valuable player in this Super Bowl. So, while I think, again, you could argue McDuffie, you could argue Chris Jones, I think the right guy probably did win Super Bowl MVP, which is less fun. It's more fun when they get it wrong, and we can say, oh, how could they give it to that but it's Mahomes. I have no real issue with him winning it here, but got to give a lot of the other guys credit as well. There's plenty more players who didn't make the list, who you have to give credit as well. So let me know your thoughts on, who didn't make the list that you think should have. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.